6:30, and I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. And if everyone could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag is that way.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's now observe a minute of silence. Okay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Mathey,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin. Here. Councilmember Motney. Here. Councilmember Emig,
Present.
Councilmember Becker,
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo, Councilmember Ward. Here. Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler,
Here.
Mayor Milawambwe.
Here. Our next item on the agenda is recognition and appointments. Madam Clerk, do we have any to announce?
We do, thank you. Just wanted to recognize Judy Buchanan to Connect Transit Board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6 on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comments? And they should all be in person. We don't have to worry about it.
That we do. We actually have 10 people, so that's the perfect amount of time for the
Okay.
30 minutes allotted, so we won't need an extension.
Awesome.
And if you'd like to read your statement first, then I'll call
Sure.
the first one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased. Thank you.
And the first one is Mary Cramp. If you could step forward, the mic right here is already on. And we will begin a timer for you on this.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I appreciate all the hard work that everyone puts forward as alderman here. I'm here because I live at 506 Patterson in the Eastgate neighborhood of Bloomington, which the majority of homes in that neighborhood were flooded with sewage water during June 25th and 26th. This storm that caused this flood is called the 100-year storm. But I was looking in the city on the city website, and I found that in 2003, there was a similarly named 100-year flood. And after that, Bendward made a lot of changes to the storm sewer system in order to prevent this type of thing from happening again. And but today, so there was the 2003 storm, there was the 100-year storm on the 25th. And in 2014, the city of Bloomington, responding to the EPA regulations, decided that they would go ahead with funding for the Locust Colton storm sewer separation. And that's ongoing now. Eastgate is in phase 5 of that mitigation separation project. And so we are hoping that in phase 5 that will proceed in 2023, which is what our alderman Jeff Crable has told us. But in order for that to proceed, we have to have a plan to fund the project. Otherwise, it'll keep being delayed and delayed and delayed. So we really hope that the city of Bloomington will come forward with a plan so that funds are available and are not diverted to other projects that come before you as different councils meet over the years. Some other suggestions that neighbors have had that I think might help in the interim are more frequent inspection and cleaning of sewers to keep them clean and free of debris. And the roads in our neighborhood have a lot of potholes, rocks. When heavy rains occur, the rocks flow into the sewers and clog them up. And also some, at a neighborhood meeting that we had, some neighbors mentioned that they had installed or were told that it might be possible to install check valves onto sewers. But when you install a check valve, basically that keeps the sewage water out of your home, but that must increase the pressure in the sewers as the water is maintained in the main sewers. And that may then increase the chance of a flooding sewage coming into other neighbors' home. So I think that needs to be looked into too. Basically, we need a lot of help. We apparently are in a lower area. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tina Sipula.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Tina Sipula. I'm at 403 Grant Road in Eastgate. Eastgate runs from Washington Street to Oakland and Mercer to State Farm. And on the weekend of the 25th of June, our basement flooded both Friday and Saturday. And because of these combined sewers, the water backed up and was spewing forth out of our basement sink, out of our toilet. It came up through the floor drain. But thankfully, because of our wonderful neighborhood, our neighbors came to help. Children came, neighbors came with shop vacs and fans. The kids ran our stuff up to the stairs and put it in the garage. In complete frustration, after hours of work, we had to unplug everything and run and evacuate the basement. The water came up 6 inches. It shorted out our new freezer. It shut down our hot water heater. It destroyed our bathroom. We lost furniture, books, photo albums, letters from lost loved ones, personal items that can never, ever be replaced. We secured a reclamation company that came all the way from Georgia to disinfect our home at the cost of $5,136.76. This does not include cleanup. My husband and I got quite ill from doing this. And when we went to St. Joe's Prompt Care, the doctor told us she was seeing more and more flood victims come through the doors with the same breathing problems. After being on medication since this flood, I am still sick. And today I went to the doctor again and he put me on round 3 of antibiotics. It is my understanding that Country Club Place has had their sewers done first. The folks on Sunset Road had theirs redone. I would think the areas of most need should be addressed first. I spent 38 years at Clare House caring for the most needy in Bloomington Normal, and now we come to you begging for your help to reallocate funds if needed so we can get the sewers modernized in one of the most needed areas in town, in Eastgate. You have known about this problem at least since 2014, and it is well past time that you put this a priority before more homes are affected, before more people get sick, and God knows anything worse. We are here begging you to please help us.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Next up is Darlene Weber.
Mayor, honorable councilman, thank you for letting me talk. I moved into the house I'm in now in 1969. The first time we had a flood, I called your water department manager. He was very polite. He told me we were the low part of McLean County. When he looked at a topical map, he was sorry that we had so much water and so much damage. My children's toy room was destroyed with that first flood. So it was back in 1969. We've had floods annually since. It hasn't been just the 100-year flood that my house gets water. My house is lower than Tina's. So I'm getting even more flooding than some of the houses. I think it is time the council listens to the water department who says something must be done. But they don't have the power to do it. I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, thanks. Next up, we'll have Diane Westhoff.
Hello, I'm Diane Westhoff. I live at 406 Grant Road. Rainwater is one thing, but sewer water is quite another. I've been a resident here since 2001. I lived through the '04 flood, which destroyed everything in my basement. I was told by the men cleaning the sewers in '04 that there was an 8-inch diameter to the sewer. So poor maintenance to '04 caused a lot of the trouble. After replacing an old rusted check valve, I was warned by the city workers that were working out front that it wouldn't protect me if I used it during a rain. I don't know if you all know what a check valve is, but everything has been discussed earlier that comes out of your house. The check valve opens and then something comes in, the check valve's supposed to close. The old rusted valve at my house was rusted open, so I put in a new check valve. But the fellows told me that we're working on the sewers. Be careful during a rain. Don't let anything go out of your house. Because if you let something go out, it might open the check valve and then everything will come in. So for 17 years, when it rains, I don't flush my toilet, I don't cook, I don't put anything down the drain that would open the check valve to let in sewer water. I discovered 17 years ago that there was a federal mandate to get this done, to get the combined sewers done. Where have you all been, although most of you probably weren't even here, 17 years ago? Didn't someone listen at that time? I'm still waiting. And I can't enjoy a good rain, even though I put a lot of money in a new check valve. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Who's next?
Next up, we have Scott Steimling.
Scott Steimling, Ward 5. With this rain that we've had, it is really concerning because the street literally flooded. And if the city would have listened and put a 4-inch inlet beside that 4-inch inlet across in front of my house, across the street on either end, we may not have this problem. Fleetwood Drive was literally flooded and the water was halfway up my drive headed for my house. Now, Tim, there is no excuse for this, none at all. And to say that I think that the city is really doing a good job, I'd be lying to you. Because I brought this up and brought this up and brought this up, and nobody wants to hear about it. Now, we all get hit on the property taxes on Benward. We get hit on the water bills on Benward, but yet nothing is done. Thankfully, I didn't have any damage, but there are people in my area that they had a ton of damage. I saw basement dewatering out there a lot. But I guess if it all depends on who it's happening to. Because if the streets would have been kept up, we would not be in this situation. When are the storm drains going to be addressed? I've got one that's sinking below, it's almost level with the grass. the curb line is. And there's no excuse for that, none at all. Also the sidewalks, they're not ADA accessible every place. I saw a grandmother 2 blocks down hiking her junior high granddaughter in a wheelchair up over the curb. And this was well after ADA was federal law. And I went down, I told her, I said, I would call the public works director at that time, who's different than it is now. And there was a city truck out there the next morning to put an ADA sidewalk in. But see, they're all ADA around what was City Hall. They're all ADA around the government center. They're all ADA around the library, but you get into the real world and they're not. I think it's a shame that it's like that. I really do. You need to take the money and put it into the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Who's next?
Next up, we have Stacy Duraco.
Hi, my name's Stacy Duraco. I live on 305 Grant Road with my husband and children. And I'm here also to talk about my effects from the flood and encouraging you all to help us figure out this giant problem. In 2005, my basement flooded so bad, I lost all my memories, carpet, just like the others. I'm echoing what the others have said. My husband and I decided that we needed to make a change. So we decided to clear, save for a couple years. And we decided to put in a new check valve and a dewatering system that cost us $20,000. I know some of my neighbors have also had to do this for peace of mind. Since then, we have gotten water only a couple times. But this past flood here happened again. Outside the front of my house, it floods all the way up. I had rain boots onto my knees and the water was coming into my knees halfway up my yard. I was worried it was going to come into my house. A car got stuck in front of our house. So my husband tried to unclog the sewer drain because the water wouldn't go down, and the person was asking for his help to save his car because it was going to go underwater. My husband was able to unclog the drain, but then my daughter screamed, "Mom, now it's coming in downstairs," because my dewatering system couldn't keep up. So my husband and I, for hours, sat and shot back with tears to try to save our basement. Like everyone's mentioned, we really need your help to fix this issue. I love my neighborhood and I want to stay and see it fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Who's next?
Next up, we have Ann Miller.
Hi, I'm Ann Miller at 410 Grant Road. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm somewhat prepared. They asked me to speak, as Stacy just said, and all my lovely neighbors. We love our neighborhood. They've all given you most of the facts. We had 6 inches of water and sewage in the basement. It came up through shower drains and floor drains. It receded once and it came back worse. The smell was horrible. It was sickly and mold began to grow on items. The smell permeated everything. I'm gonna touch on the human part of all of this more than the facts. Because we're all real people. I used to hear about hurricanes, the floods in Texas recently, tornadoes. I've been through them in Louisville, Kentucky as a teenager and never forgot about it. I'm a homebody. It's what I love. I nurture people, animals. I don't even like to go back home now if we're out and about. It's heartbreaking. Home doesn't feel just like home anymore, and we all kind of agree. We have great neighbors, love to walk in the neighborhood, but a piece of mind has been taken away. And if you've not been through it really, like I say, I'll never say again, boy, we were lucky. I'm glad that wasn't us going through that flood or that tornado, because once you go through it, it's your home. It's just a whole different feeling when you walk in the door and it hits you in the face. And if you haven't seen anybody's home, I don't care whose you choose, you're welcome to come to ours at 410 Grant and see the real effects. Please stop by any of ours. We'd be glad to have you come through and see what it's really like to walk in the doors and think about the cleanup and have your kids living there and lose their blankets and their family videos and their letters from their great grandparents. And thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Who's next?
Next up, we have Gary Donahue. And also Mayor, Gary dropped off some pictures. There's only 5, but if you can share them, that would be great.
Sure.
Phew. Hard to follow that. So I'm Gary Donahue, and I live with Patty Spencer in Eastgate in the 8th Ward at 2304 East Jackson Street, where the human waste, sewage, and the runoff rainwater is combined into one line in the city, banned in most states. I'd like to thank Jeff Crable, who met with 46 of my neighbors last Saturday morning at Winnie Gent's house. Mr. Crable personally invited us to attend today's meeting to comment to you, Mr. Mayor, the human cost of this CSO problem in Eastgate. Eastgate's a community built in the 50s on former farmland. And in order for the farmer to sell it, he had to drain a swamp. And then the city bought the land. And there are people here who have documents to prove all that. It's now a subterranean labyrinth of these commingled sewer lines. And you've heard stories here today that just don't happen to the other communities called Bloomington. It happens to us every year. Something like this is happening. We dug into it a little bit, and in 2014, there was a big study, I suppose 100 grand since it was 1,000 pages, right? $100 a page. And all of those people are gone, I think. Is anybody here from 2014 who read those documents? Because they said, get to work now. Get the federal funding going now. Stopped, nothing happened. But my personal experience was that at 8:25, about 8:15 on Friday the 25th, we're sitting in the living room and we hear what sounds like a waterfall hitting a flat rock. So it was raining. I run outside. I'm looking for the gutters. Patty goes to the door and she goes, oh my God, there's water in the basement. And that was the beginning of the end of it. We had to spend 8 days in a hotel room. And if not for that, she would be a lot more sick. She's on antibiotics also. I took a video and I shared that with Jeff, and I hope Jeff will pass that video around. PMA Group has all of my videos and all of my documents from my home, but I just happen to have the skill to be able to do that. This wasn't a rainwater problem so much as it was bad planning, bad civil work. Our bills are mounting up, as you've heard from everybody. We're just a small bill, but we'd like to get some help. We'd like some financial help in the short run. And we'd like a commitment from you for the long run. And we don't want to wait until 2025. And I have a large list of people who are willing to fund a story.
Thank you. Who's next?
Next up, we have Kathy Petty.
Not the public speaker, so forgive me. I'm just going to read what I have here. The city invaded our home, and it needs to make us whole. This is not about rain or 100-year floods, but about city sewer water forcing its way into my home. Each month, I pay the city of Bloomington to remove sewer waste from my home. On the 25th and 26th of June, the city failed to give me the service. For 2 hours each day, the city instead sent sewer water into my home. A total of 4 hours, costing me tens of thousands of dollars in damage, yet no one seems to be accountable. From my account, over 40 homes in my neighborhood has had similar experiences. Jeff Craybill was gracious enough to meet with us last Saturday. However, I feel he made it clear with his last question to us all. Has anyone ever known anyone that has gotten anything from the city in the way of a damage claim? I feel what he was really saying is, you should not expect to get anything from the city of Bloomington, but I'm hopeful that maybe we will. I would at least like some answers. Why did this happen? Was it a city sewer failure? Was it due to something a contractor was doing to the work on Washington Street? Since the city is the one I paid to remove my sewer water, I think it is the one that needs to give me the answers. Isn't the city insured for failures? How will the city prevent this from happening again? This isn't just about me. The city council needs to realize that this impacted a huge neighborhood. The city has no problem spending money on welcome signs, studies that have been done over and over again for an East Side bypass, or workshops to teach city council people how to behave in front of the television. It is time for the council to step up and spend money to get our real problems solved in a more timely manner. I guess this all comes down to it being a huge, huge health and safety issue. We are not talking about flood water here. We are talking about sewer water being forced back into our homes. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Who's next?
And last up, we have Lisa Holland.
Good evening. My name's Lisa Holland. I live at 405 Grant Road in the Eastgate neighborhood of Ward 8 as well. So thank you all for being here and for listening to our neighborhood discuss the issues that happened on the 25th and the 26th. My situation is very similar to what you've already heard several times. On the evening of June 25th, you may all recall that there was a tornado warning. Our phones were buzzing and we were instructed to take cover, where in our house, we went to our basement. And at that time, we did not have any flooding issues yet. However, when I went to our bathroom in the basement, the bathtub there was filling with dark gray water. And we knew that we had a very short amount of time to pick up what we could and save what we could. And in that respect, I feel like we're very much fortunate and far more fortunate than many of our neighbors who had a lot more damage. Nonetheless, we did still experience significant flooding. It filled the bathtub. It came pouring out of the toilet for close to an hour. We used our shop vac to 14 gallons at a time, empty our basement and try to get it as dry as we could before contacting folks to get it further dried out. And in less than a 24-hour period, on Saturday, June 26th, this all happened again. The tornado warnings were going off. We were going to our basement to take cover. And again, we found another catastrophe in a weather emergency. So I hope you understand how traumatic this has been, that we've all been through this twice in less than a 24-hour period. And in addition to everything that's lost, it's extremely scary to be in that situation. And so we're here to hopefully find out what can we do to get this sewer fix funded and happening sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your public comments. Is this it? Right? Okay,
Sorry.
thank
Yeah,
you.
everyone.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any members of the council would like to have removed? Okay, I see Councilmember Bolin. I know Councilmember Matthey. Okay.
7H.
Seven E and 7I.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7H, 7E, and 7I?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilmember
Second.
Matthey, second by Councilmember Bolin. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Ward. Aye. Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. So moving on to the items as they were pulled. We're going to start with 7H. Councilmember Bolin.
Yeah, I would just like a little bit of clarification. Which licenses will be able to be signed off by the city manager and the clerk?
I'm going to let do you want to take that?
Yeah, so I can give you an example and I can also get you a full list of all of them. It's really, so my office manages 26 applications. The majority of them are amusement license. So things like billiards and even down to pinball machines, things like that. There's also tobacco license as well. And then just as a reminder, I already signed the approval for video gaming. So there's some let's say much more kind of higher on the list ones that require a little bit more work that we're already handling. And so these are what I would call lower level applications, the amusements, tobacco primarily. And it was really just to streamline processes. It's something that we are in charge of the review already. And what we do is we send our recommendation over to the city manager and then he approves from there.
Okay. And this is just sort of a cleanup thing. I don't remember what you call it when it's just a really small thing in the ordinance.
A Scrivener's error, maybe?
No, it's in section 4 and
Okay.
it says she
Oh.
in relation to clerk. So I would say, scratch that out, either not put anything or put he, she.
Yeah, and I could comment to that too really quick. There's lots of those kind of things that we'd like to correct throughout the code. And right now, I've been working on for some time a recodification, and the recodification will actually make the code gender neutral and address some of those things as well. So
Thank you.
yeah, we can catch it in this one. I don't see a problem with that if it was in the actual language that we had, Jeff. And then going forward, we'll address that on a whole code level. Thanks.
Well, I'm not trying to get rid of you, but there might be some man that takes over.
Hey, I might win the lottery tomorrow. Just kidding.
If you win, we are going with you. Okay. All right, so is there a motion?
Sorry, yes, a motion to approve as presented. Sorry.
Okay, second by Councilmember Ward. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The item passes. There's no names to announce. Next is item 7E, Councilmember Matthey.
Thank you. Jeff, I shot you a question earlier today and I saw your answer, but I'm not sure I completely understood it. Just for the record, what I asked was if we still had a lien on the property, on the Jumers or Chateau property because of old sales tax that was due on that. And you answered, but if you could clarify, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, and I think this is actually 7H, just for the record. Oh, no, wait, you are right, the 7E, isn't it? Yeah, so we had, in 2014, there was hotel motel tax that was owed from the property. About $215,000 plus interest and penalties that had accrued on that from the previous owner. And so at that time, the council approved a repayment agreement to repay what was about $288,000. That, again, that included all the hotel motel tax and the interest and penalties on that, came up to about $288,000. It was not an interest-free loan, so interest continued to accrue on it. Before the previous owners defaulted on that agreement, we collected about $307,000. So since they defaulted on the agreement, they technically still owed us about $67,000. Since they defaulted on that agreement, we have not released the tax liens on that property yet. We've also informed the new purchaser that we still consider a liability out there. We're in the process of talking to everybody about that right now. But the short answer to your question is yes, there are still tax liens on there. The property was foreclosed upon, so some questions about whether, those liens are still valid or not. But nonetheless, we believe there is still a little bit of money that is owed on the property.
Okay, so the property may not even be in the hands of the people that actually owe us the money at this point, depending on.
No, the people that actually incurred the debt are gone. That was Bloomington Chateau Partners, I believe was the formal name. They are no longer managing the property or owning the property. They were foreclosed upon. They're long gone. Their LLC has been dissolved. So that they're no longer a party to this, if that answers your question.
It does. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify how that was going to work going forward with new owners coming into the picture. Yes, that's what I'm seeking clarity. I know that this item is specifically about the lease of the conference center. That's on there, but I was just, it's all going to play together and I wanted to make sure we had clarity on that before we move forward. So if we assign this lease, that paves the way for the individuals buying the property to move to the next step. We get to the next step and they're going to go to some sort of closing and our lien is still going to be sitting out there. How does that, I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, how it all plays together.
Yeah, you're right. It is separate, but in that regard, it does play together. And that's why we've been talking to the attorneys for the purchaser and the attorneys for the seller. And we're trying to get that resolved. It is separate from the actual assignment of the lease because the amount that we're owed is under a tax repayment agreement, which was for hotel motel tax related to the Chateau property. So we are trying to resolve how that, what we consider to be a valid debt is going to get resolved. Again, technically, they still owe us about $67,000 under that 2014 repayment agreement.
Okay. But if we're working on that, this still needs to move forward to even get to that next step.
Well, that's right. I mean, we are obligated because there was a foreclosure. They're considered a permitted transferee, so they're entitled to an assignment. So we cannot stop the assignment. So from that regard, this is completely separate from the previous debt from Bloomington Chateau Partners.
Okay. In that case, then I will move that we accept 7E as presented.
Second.
Second.
by who? Who seconded?
Emig?
Oh, Jeff. Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll? I couldn't see peripheral vision here again.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward. Aye. Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The item passes. There are no nays to announce. And next is item 7I. You're recusing yourself, correct?
Yeah, I need to recuse myself. I'm a member of the River Group.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve item 7I as
I'll
presented?
make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolin,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Crumpler. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward. Aye. Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The item passes. There are no nays to announce. There he is. Awesome. That's right. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the regular agenda. Item 8A, consideration action on the 2021 or 2021-2023 IT strategic plan as requested by the Information Technology Department. And I'm gonna turn it over to City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the IT strategy plan that was presented by the IT Director, Craig Macbeth, a couple of meetings ago. I know that we've had some 3-on-1 meetings and other conversations with council. But when Craig was first promoted into this position spring of last year, and it was amidst COVID, this was a charge of his to set forth and chart out a IT strategy for within the organization and external components as well within the community. And this is a culmination of those efforts, and I ask for council to formally adopt this.
Thank you, City Manager Gleason. Is there a motion? We can take a motion and then discussion if needed.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Emig and
Second.
second by Councilmember Matthew. Discussion? Okay, Councilmember Crumpler.
And Craig, this may have been something you've talked about before. And I guess I want to begin by, I really like the ambitiousness of this plan and congratulate you and your team for pulling this together. I wonder if you could comment on how much of the implementation of the actual plan will be completed out in-house as opposed to involving a third party. For example, we talk about refreshing the city website as one of the goals and one of the larger initiatives might be an example. Would you comment on that for us this evening, please?
Sure, thank you. And thank you, City Council, for putting this up for approval tonight. I appreciate your support and certainly want to thank all the city staff that went in to put their time and effort into getting all this information together. To answer your question, Mr. Crumpler, it's hard to put a specific on that because it is going to depend on the individual initiatives that we've outlined. Certainly, a lot of those initiatives will rely on third-party information, third-party resources to get that work done. The actual coordination of those initiatives and the timing certainly will be a blend of city staff and third-party resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Craybill.
Thank you, Mayor. Craig, appreciate hearing the plan over time. My question, I guess, is, so let's say we're back here in a year and we say, how's it going? How will you be able to judge whether the plan is being implemented as it should be?
Great question. So part of the basis of the strategic plan to find out what it is that we want to focus on involved numerous diagnostic surveys. the CIO, CEO diagnostic survey, the individual business value survey, the IT staff survey. Those surveys are planned to run every year, so we can start getting trend analysis on, are we moving in the right direction? Are we making progress with how we want to make progress? So certainly annually is what we expect to run those surveys at.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councilmember Mutney.
So with so much ambition in this and a lot of work that's queued up concurrently, I guess, one thing I would offer is the website, the content on the website has a lot of opportunity for improvement. It's extremely voluminous, non-searchable, et cetera. And these are things that I think are going to take a long time, but are foundational to being able to apply some of the other thoughts you have about being a leader in innovation and technology and things of that nature. So as we think about how this lays out, that's something that's constituent facing. It's facing and impacts the productivity of the staff. I'm sure it's impactful to the time in responding to freedom of information requests and things of that nature. So I just want to offer focus to clean up all that content and create modernized searching capabilities on the internet and intranet.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yeah, I always ask the money issues. And the timeline, I don't remember reading it in the packet because this is going to be a very large change. So are you looking at a 5-year plan for implementation? I know it's never going to be done, but I'm talking about getting to the point of the innovation level.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So the strategic plan really is outlined a 2-year plan. So really by the end of 2023 is when we hope to encompass a lot of the initiatives that we've identified and get us to at least not, if not all the way to the innovator level, very close to that innovator level.
Okay. And most other plans that are presented to us have a funding amount attached. Could you share that?
Sure. Yeah. So that is another thing we talked about, in the 3-on-1s where, there really is no specific funding outlined in the strategic plan. A lot of that detail is going to be in the initiative level. So as we've seen through those top 40 initiatives that we've identified, we will begin to investigate and find out what the funding level is needed to get that done at whatever degree that we want that individual initiative accomplished. So while there's certainly no commitment today for that funding, there will be additional conversations when we get into those initiatives and have that information to share with the city council.
I ask a lot of questions for the public.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate it. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Oh, okay, Councilmember Ward. This peripheral vision thing is kind of rough, Maybe I'll need a camera and screen over there so I can see.
No, I'd like to echo and underscore something that's already been said with regard to the website. I just can't emphasize enough how essential that is to updating that. There are so many documents that are frankly outdated and difficult to find. I mean, as recently as this afternoon, members of the city council couldn't even find documents that we were looking for, and we need to improve in that regard. And it touches so many different areas. It touches the impression people get of our city when they're wanting to move here or thinking of doing business here. It's for many people the very first thing that they see. It touches people. We've had 10 people speak tonight. I wish they were still here because I'd love to ask them a show of hands if they know of some of the resources that are out there to mitigate some of the issues that they've been having. And I could almost guarantee that they've never heard of those things. And they need to hear of them. And we just really need to address this. So I just want to underscore that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Matthew.
I don't want to drag us into the weeds too much, but Craig, am I correct that IT department enables each department to create their own content on the website? So it's up to the individual departments of how they word and how they organize their documents right now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's just it's a different problem. It's not a website issue per se, as it is a communications problem. So maybe we're just gonna dump this whole problem into Catherine's lap or something to fix long-term, but how we phrase and how we word things and stuff on the website, I agree with everybody that it is an issue. It's not really the main, just what we're talking to tonight, but it's something that is gonna have to touch every department and how they think about verbiage they're using and how they come up with the layouts and the organizational processes. So it's not necessarily a problem for the website, but yet it's a problem for the website at the same time. And just want to share a little, thought that maybe we need to do some training with whoever in each department is responsible for their section of the website and make sure we have some standards of how things are communicated there. Thanks.
Oh, Councilmember.
I'd just like to
Ward.
follow up and just say that I am totally supportive of people being able to have the freedom to include what they see as important on the website. But I think that you can't expect members of a particular department to necessarily have the expertise. I mean, I'm a hospital chaplain and I would never presume to understand how to actually post something on the hospital website in an intelligent way. I depend on our IT people for that. And if that means giving some further resources to IT in order to have someone who can oversee that, then so be it. I'm not hearing you say that, Public Works needs to be an expert on how to post things. Don't get me wrong, but I really do want to reinforce that we need to have some kind of standardization, if you will, and some sort of common process.
Yeah, let me just comment to that. So we do have a content management system that manages our website that does tend to standardize a lot on the content, how it's placed, how it looks. IT will certainly be there to assist with recommendations or best practice on which content and which way we want to format that content. Certainly when we get into ADA accessibility, we have to make sure that certain information is there and available. Documents that are uploaded are in PDF and accessible formats, things like that. So certainly we're never out of the picture, but it is going to be on to the individual content editors to make sure that the content they have posted is current, is relevant, and is the correct information. And certainly you mentioned, Catherine, now that she's on board as our communications manager, there will be, some interaction there that we can get some additional oversight, throughout the city to make sure that we do have that correct information on the website.
And it looks like Catherine is enthusiastically embracing this new assignment. Okay, so Councilmember Emig, I know you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to note that in the last year, I've noticed a great improvement actually on our website. So I see that strides have been taken. But back to this question of usability overall, has there ever been any kind of survey or data analysis of how residents are able to access it?
There certainly has. So as we go through the website refresh cycle, we partner with a company. At the time it was Vision Internet, and since now it's Granicus. But their redevelopment process is very intensive. They go through a number of surveys, both UX surveys and citizen surveys, along with just technical analysis of the site. We load up Google Analytics. We can see heat map tracking of where people are looking, where people are clicking. That gets us a lot of good information to be able to proceed with what information needs to be where. And certainly the mayor and I had a discussion earlier this year about the timing of this, and it is something that is on our schedule this year to get done as far as the main city's website goes. So we're going to be running through that same process. It's going to involve, a full analysis of it. And it gets into, how many people access from mobile, how many people access from desktop, what resolution do people access it from? So it does get very involved, and I do think we do a good job with that. Thank you, though.
I wondered, and that's helpful as we continue to revisit how this implementation is going and what to focus on. It would be useful to connect that with how users are engaging with the technology and the content. So,
thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Monty.
Yeah, I think in this blend between content suppliers and the infrastructure provided by IT, it's both. And I think this is a very large effort to get this done. The search capabilities are substantially under modern capabilities. The metadata, which would trigger a routine for sunsetting content, the linkage between related content that have dependencies across various locations on the site. I just want to offer that this is going to be a significant effort and one that should come before other modernization efforts so that you don't automate and apply tools on top of content that needs to be sunset and removed at that time.
Okay, Councilmember Becker.
So one other thing, and I wasn't going to bring this up now, but as long as we're talking about it, along with the website, as your interface to the citizens of the community, you also have the problem reporting. And I know, I can look at my Bloomington and find some things, but I think I've seen, in addition to the complaints about the website not being able to find information, people really struggle getting information to follow up on their concerns and the issues they've submitted. So I would say somehow we need to work that into this plan as well, whether it's education or a better way to track and follow up on issues for people, I think fits in there too. So just a comment.
Okay. And one quick question, Craig, just for context, could you tell us how many people do you have working with you, working on website and things like that? Because my impression is that, you have a pretty small team compared to other areas, or other businesses and organizations in town who have much, much larger teams to do some of these things and sometimes can devote a single or a team of individuals to take care of things while other things, happen.
Yeah, great question, Mayor. So we have 13 members on our IT staff. I think 7 which are full-time employees. For the website individually, it's really Mr. Melder in the back there and myself. That was one of my previous roles here at the city, was the webmaster function. So I've relinquished a lot of that to Phil and cross-trained him, but he has taken the brunt of the work of there. So it's really just one individual at this point.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So is there a motion? We need a motion, right?
Mayor, yeah, we actually have the motion.
Oh, we
It's
have the
just been a
motion, sorry.
minute. So we had
Call the roll.
a motion to approve as presented.
Right.
It was, the first was by Councilmember Emig and a second by Councilmember Matthew.
Okay, good. I was having so much fun. I forgot.
All
Okay,
right.
so could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda is our city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have a handful of comments to make tonight, and I think where I'd like to start first is sharing my appreciation to McLean County, the interim county administrator, Chairman McIntyre, in making this possible. Even though this is not the final version of what the city and county chambers will look like, we kicked off the second half of the calendar year by setting it up this way. And this is the first time that we are in person. Also, the calendar sharing, it's no small task trying to arrange all the county meetings that occur in this building and all the meetings that occur for the city that will begin occurring. But at the end of the day, you've got two governmental entities where it just makes sense to figure this out and try to save, be more efficient, save some taxpayer dollars. So I want to share my appreciation with McLean County. Next item, even though we no longer have the COVID update at the beginning of the council meetings, every now and then there will be a COVID update. And wanted to share that McLean County continues to be in the top 10 in the state of 102 counties for our vaccination rate. So that's something to be proud of, and I know that we can always do more. And then secondly, under COVID comments, we have two additional partnerships. The NAACP is going to have a vaccination site in addition to what's already occurring and has been occurring at the arena. But the NAACP is going to have a vaccination site at Mount Pisgah. And then also St. Mary's Catholic Church is going to as well. Both of those are in conjunction with the McLean County Health Department. Storm update is obviously the biggie. And next week for our committee of the whole, while we do not have complete data, to share with the community, Public Works Director Kevin Cothe is going to have a brief presentation to kick off the more in-depth conversation about many of the topics that we've heard since the storm. We heard in public comment this evening, so that will be coming next week in a shorter version as we continue to collect data. Something else, and this is one that we will be pushing through our media efforts with Catherine, but the county, in conjunction with many other partners, is standing up. The acronym is called the MARC, and the MARC is a multi-agency resource center. So very much wish that this audience that was in this room would still be here to hear that. It's going to be hosted at the Bloomington Junior High on this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then again on Sunday, the 18th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we'll be pushing that message out along with McLean County. But again, that truly is the resource center that you stand up in the time of a disaster. We will be represented there. The city will have a table there along with other resources for the community. So we're going to do our best to get the word out. And then additionally, the special bulk pickup daily, the special bulk waste pickup. We followed the very same map that we do with the regular bulk waste pickups. And that started on the 12th, and we're going to run this through completion. The target that's been posted on the website is through July 20th. And the color-coded map for when we will be in your neighborhood, and this is me talking to the community, when we will be in your neighborhood is on the website. And again, we're just following the past maps and dates for different wards being first and the order of the same as what we've done in the past with the regular bulk waste pickups. And then additionally, regarding the PMA claims to the city, we have over 500 that have already been filed. It's our understanding that our third-party administrator, PMA, has made that initial contact with all 500 claims. And every incident is being reviewed as a specific case-by-case basis. And very much appreciate the community's patience with something that many have been victims, and we'll get through this together as best we can. Phil, I think I have 2 slides. Downtown Bloomington Farmers Market, this continues to be very well attended. And First Friday event is on August 6th, and it's Dog Days. Next item is a Saturdays on the Square free show. Next one is coming up on not this coming Saturday, but the following on July 24th. And I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Gleason. Under my comments, I just have a number of thank yous. First of all, I want to say, reiterate thank you to the county chairman McIntyre and Cassie Taylor, interim administrator, for working with us in making this happen. It turned out a lot better. I was a little anxious at first, but this has worked out pretty well. So hopefully, things will be the same in the future. I also want to say thank you to the IT staff because over the past year and a half, because of COVID, we've jumped through a lot of hoops. You have in doing making sure that we're able to not only communicate but to meet. And I know it wasn't easy. You had to just do it on a dime, and I think that's fantastic. Hopefully, now that we're back in person, you can focus on your IT strategic plan with less work. Also want to say thank you to the staff for a great 4th of July fireworks. I know in the midst of a storm and the things that people were dealing with, I think it was still important for us to have an opportunity to get together and do something that we do every year, particularly after not being able to do it last year. So I think I just kind of felt a collective, sigh of relief, from people as I was walking by. They seemed to be pretty happy to be able to experience the fireworks. Also want to thank the volunteers for their assistance with the storm cleanup, neighbors who helped each other, but also various volunteers who cleaned up at WBRP, for example, had quite a few volunteers there cleaning up, and it was a tough job. I only lasted an hour. Some people were there, for the whole day. And I think that was fantastic. And we also have had some volunteers helping with the damage assessment, helping the McLean County Emergency Management Agency, and I think that's great. Also want to thank the staff for their efforts in the cleanup, but also answering the many inquiries from residents, but also elected officials. I know, we've sent a lot of questions by email, lots of phone calls. And I know it's been I know it's a trying time and people put in a lot of hours, and we're definitely thankful for that. I want to make sure that it's not forgotten. And last, I want to say, although we're back in person, you from time to time you hear about the Delta variant, as far as COVID is concerned. So I just want to make sure that everyone remains vigilant, to do the best you can so that we don't go back into what we had to deal with. So now that we're out and about and able to congregate together, I'd like for that to happen and stay here forever. So let's just remain vigilant. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to ask if any council member has comments to make, discussion. Okay, Councilmember Emig.
Thank you. I just want to follow up a bit about the storm, and I think it might be best if I just ask all of these questions and then Mr. Gleason can respond. And first, I just wonder if there's any insight into a timeline. I know PMA has a lot of claims to process, and it may be impossible, but any insight about a timeline would be good. If it's too late to submit, if claims can still be submitted. And I just learned about Mark and the resources available earlier today, and I'm thankful that that's going to happen. Will that include where else residents can get help if their claims are denied, or what sort of other things might they access at this resource center? And finally, a big thank you that we will devote time in the Committee of the Whole next week to a discussion of these topics. It's deeply appreciated.
Sure.
quick responses, PMA timeline, do not have that yet. They'll work through those. But we will message that as soon as we possibly can. The agenda of all the entities that will be represented, we'll start messaging that as well so that residents have a level of awareness of what they're walking into at the Bloomington Junior High. And last question, I apologize, I forgot what it was.
That's okay. Is it too late to submit a claim?
No.
Thank you. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you. I also have just a couple of comments and questions with regard to the flood. Maybe this quick, simple one first. City manager, when you mentioned that all initial contacts had been made by PMA, is that PMA has actually sent an assessor to every one of the people who's called in, or they've just had conversation over the phone with somebody who's called in? Could you just clarify?
I think a more accurate statement is just reaching out to the resident, probably via email or a phone call saying you are in queue. We've received your information and working through those case by case.
Do you have any sense of how many people have actually had someone come out to their home yet?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. And then I also am very grateful that we're going to be able to take this up at the committee of the whole. I hope that we'll actually be able to take it up at length rather than just briefly. I think that it would be good to hear pretty comprehensively about what can be done, both in the long term and in the medium term. So far we've been, dealing with the very short term in terms of cleanup and that kind of thing. Some of the things that I've been hearing about recently have reinforced for me that we need to hear more and make more known about the medium term options. We've heard about the CSOs needing to be dealt with, but clearly that's a years and years project that needs to happen. I'm talking about things like the overhead sewer fund program, which I suspect most people aren't very familiar with. At least that's what I've been told, that much of that money sits year after year without being used. And I would love to see us consider that as a possibility to address some of these issues in the medium term. And if that means, again, investing more in that fund, then let's do that, because I don't think we can constantly bounce between the cleanup in the immediate term and the somewhere out there when we'll finally get to the CSO issue being completely resolved. We got to do something in the medium term. And I think people are pretty desperate for that.
Quick comment regarding the committee of the whole presentation that's going to be made by Public Works. The one that's coming up next week. I don't want to oversell this. It's going to really be a kickoff conversation, the more in depth, because there's so much data that we still need to be collecting will occur at the committee of the whole in August. But we will dive as deep as we possibly can, sharing, what we know at this point, but that more in-depth conversations slated for August.
I appreciate that, because people in my ward that I've been talking to have had 6-7 feet of water in their basements, not inches, but feet. And that's a big deal.
Councilmember Crable.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to ask, I had not heard about this resource center. Did I miss an email maybe?
No, this truly all just occurred today.
Okay, so you'll send something out on that.
The county EMA to stand up the mark was done today.
Okay, so we'll get more information on it, and we can tell people when the public events are going to be and where,
Definitely.
Okay.
It's critical. I've got past experience where a mark had been stood up for a long period of time. It truly is a tremendous resource for the residents trying to look for, what are the next steps. And we will message this as much as we possibly can this Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you. Yeah, I had had my, as you know, I had my meeting on Saturday morning with residents but this is not just something happening in that neighborhood. These are issues that are happening, across the city. And I just would like to get some more information. I know about the Locust Colton project, but that's just in this one area where these residents talked about. But what's going on in the rest of the city where there are CSO issues. I mean, in fact, it could be that my neighborhood and my ward is actually getting things fixed while others are not, right? I just don't know. So.
And that's exactly what we're going to deliver. We know that your constituents, the residents, community, want to have that conversation. I'm confident that this conversation has occurred many times, but it takes an event like this where maybe the community hears it a little bit more. I know the elected body understand it and hear it, but it's definitely a conversation that we're going to have next week, but more so in depth, committee of the whole in August.
And I'll just just a switch of topics. One of the things, with the weather over that weekend, we were able to celebrate Pride Fest for the most part. Big turnout. That was a great event. I know the city worked well with Jan to make sure she had everything that she needed, and a lot of people in the community gave her support so she could have the event. So I think it was a great community event, especially with all that was going on that weekend.
Thank you. Okay, I saw you leaning toward, but I was a chair. Okay, all right, sounds good. I think this is it. No executive session, so I'd like to entertain a motion
Move
to
that we
adjourn.
adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Boland, second by Councilmember Matthew, right?
Yeah, I think I beat her, but whatever.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. See you next Monday.